Before we go into the podcast, I want to just talk about a business that I've set up with my friend George. It is called the Podcast Introduction Group. So if you want to join and be able to be featured on 24 to 48 podcasts to be able to reach an amazing audience, this is the place you need to go to. Podcast, being a guest on podcasts, is automatically establishing you as an authority and is able to build your personal and professional brand. We handpick of a bank of podcasters that we have to be able to grow your business and brand. We do 100% of everything that needs to be done by my team. You do not need to lift a finger. You are able to expose yourself to new and relevant markets by going on other people's podcasts. You also are able to create brand loyalty. People will love listening to you and coming back to your products or services, and it's able to increase your revenue. So if you want to be able to get involved, you can sign up quickly, registered with an account manager. There's an onboarding call where we target the podcasts that you want to be on, the type that you want, whether it's entrepreneurship, business, health, fitness, whatever it is. We then match you to those podcasts and you can start your journey. We have regular catch-ups with our account managers, and Google ranks you when people search for you. So when people are searching for you, you're able to see your podcasts at the top of the list. So if you are interested in being a podcast guest on multiple podcasts, we are the place to go. If you go to podcastintroduction.com and go and register your details, we will have a quick call with you, match your podcast that you want to be on, and we can then start this process ASAP. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Back onto the podcast then. Just one last thing before we go into the podcast. I just wanted to talk to you about the fact that I have a YouTube channel that has been going for quite some time, and I am recording and releasing all of my interviews with some short videos as well on YouTube. So please do check it out. YouTube on Absolute Business Mindset. You'll see a bunch of interviews there, all the longer format interviews and some short videos as well. So please enjoy that. And here goes with the podcast interview. This is the Absolute Business Mindset podcast, created and hosted by Mark Hayward. This podcast will interview entrepreneurs, business owners, and people in their careers. We will delve into their journey to success, key life milestones, and go deep into their area of expertise. Get ready to learn from others' successes and failures. Today we have Angel Ribo, his second interview with me. So, hello, Angel. How are you?
Very well, thank you, and Happy New Year to you and to your audience, Mark. Thank you.
You very much. Happy New Year to you as well. So what does 2022 mean for you? What's the sort of plan for this year? We're all goal setting. And...
I love that question, Mark.
Excellent. Thank you. Go for it. What's the plan for 2022?
No, you know why? Because actually, it's funny how in 2020 was the first time ever, in 2020, interestingly enough, the first time ever I had like some kind of mantra for the year.
Right.
My mantra for that year was, why not?
Okay.
Why not? It's kind of like be open to anything coming to you, and decide why not doing it, why not engaging with this, right?
Yeah.
Last year was be the solution.
Okay.
Last year in 2021 was be the solution. So I tried to be the solution for as many issues I had around me. No, I mean, just kidding. But meaning that, whenever someone needed my help, I would be there to help them. And I think it's important. And focusing on value, it's important. But then this year is focus on the positive. Focus on the positive. Because I think that right now is exactly what, obviously, when you say, I'm here to make the world a better place, in reality, this is like trying to hide ourselves from ourselves. Right. Because in reality, what we have to improve is ourselves in order to make the rest of the world better, because the world is just a reflection of ourselves. Yeah. Right? So focusing on the positive means for me that I will continuously make an effort. Eventually it will be a flawless, unconscious effort to focus on the positive, because I think that there's so many things reminding us of maybe the bad things or the mistakes, or and I mean, very, very, and as you know, very bluntly, when we started our conversation, we just checked on each other to make sure that we were healthy, right?
Yeah.
Because this is what's going on in the world. That's the natural thing to do, right? And, you are, besides an extraordinary interviewer, you are also, I love your energy. It's a beautiful energy, and you're always positive as well. So, yeah, you're a very positive person. So, and you explained me, what happened for New Year's Eve, and it was kind of, it was, anybody else could have explained the same thing that you explained to me. Like, we were on the street, and we were having this very nice party, and suddenly someone said something that triggered the alarm among all of us that we're having a party, right? But you explained it in a very nice way. And someone could have made a big fuss and maybe immediately left the party and immediately take so many measures. But life is what it is, And at the end, I think that life is much of it is what we do after
How do you deal with negative people? Because one of the things that I've sort of had in people in my life that have been sort of negative influences, and it's sometimes when it's quite tricky when they're quite close to you, or relatives, or people that you've spent a lot of time with in the past. How do you sort of keep their negativity at bay?
That's a great question as well, because it's like, when you were asking me, how am I going to, what I'm going to do with 2022? And I love the question. I say, yeah, thank you for asking me that question. That's exactly the same way I react to negative energy people and negative people. I say, I always use my kind of my good sense of humor and my exaggeration. I don't know if I ever had maybe some British ancestors in my lineage, but maybe that's the reason. As you know, I lived in the UK a couple of times in my life, or maybe 3 times in my life. But and I love your sense of humor, guys. So I really like to use to overreact on a positive, humorous way to any reaction, because it's true. There's people that are continuously trying to grab your attention on a negative way, and they're maybe even they victimize themselves to make you feel worse or make you feel bad. But again, it's a game, right? It's always up to me to decide, will I surrender my power? Will I surrender my energy? Will I or will I not? And that's why even my mantra for 2022 is even more relevant, right? Focus on the positive. And if someone comes to me, and actually it's funny because my wife was just telling me about this co-worker that she's continuously she just joined the company, and she's continuously in the negative side. Like all day long is in the negative side. Everything is and she's refusing to be helped and everything. And I was telling my wife, I was asking my wife, who are you? Are you a negative person or are you a positive person? Why are you successful doing what you do? Why do people love you where you are working right now? What do they value from you? And she realized that, she had not lots of things in common with that other person. Yeah. So I told her, just be yourself, just be yourself, and just try not to focus your energy on someone that has a completely different way of, confronting life. And it's the same as the use of silence, right?
Yeah.
Why should we answer every single statement that's being made around me? Why should I not use silence more consistently?
Yeah.
What is it? It's like, you are in a conversation, let's say on a post or on a social media outlet. Why do you have to answer to all the comments? Why do you have to answer to even everybody texting you? Obviously you try to be nice with people, but is there a written or unwritten, social custom that you have to actually answer to everything and everybody? If you think that you should not surrender part of your power or of your energy or of your positivity, and you don't want to engage with someone and you just want to keep silence, just do it. And I think we're not taught to do that.
Yeah.
Even when you were a kid. Do you remember when you were a kid and you would go visit some relatives and your mom would tell you, hey, you have to answer. Auntie just asked you this. You have to answer.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't do that. because if my kids don't want to say anything because they don't feel comfortable, it's their right. It's their own right not to answer. It's not that they're not being polite. It's like maybe they don't know what to say. We have to accept that maybe they are shy, or they don't know what to say, or they just don't want to say. Anyway, sorry to.
No. I was just going to say, I think the power of silence is actually really good, especially when you're negotiating or you're having a difficult conversation with someone, and actually just making your point and then letting it set and then count to 3. Don't need much more than 3, because for people that are in conversation, sometimes stopping for 3 seconds can be really, really powerful. So I try to use that when talking in difficult conversations, because what you'll find is the other person will fill, and that filling often gives you, if you're negotiating or having this difficult conversation, they will fill and give you something that can be powerful for that conversation, and sort of maybe show, not necessarily a weakness, but show a side that they probably didn't want to share. So just if you're listening on this podcast and just think about that power of silence and just letting it hang and just let it go and see what happens there. It can be an incredibly powerful tool.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hi, I'm Alex, the host of X Health Show. Meet the future of healthcare. Think X-Men, that's X Health. Actual superheroes behind programming living cells to cure cancer once and for all. Tech that detects preterm delivery in seconds, brain-computer interface, or apps that employ AI to match you, your disease, with the best treatment. X Health Show brings to you visionaries who push the boundaries of healthcare from Switzerland, the heart of Europe and the most innovative country in the world. Let me introduce you to their startups. Head to X Health Show, meet the future of healthcare. Happy to greet you there.
Yeah, in many different ways. And again, I think that social media. I speak about social media because, as you know, it's a source of. It's a source of. It can be a source of not only negativity, but it's a source of discomfort. Many, as you know, we interact, and now that there's this, fictitious thing called like distancing, right now, sometimes we are obliged to interact with pretty close people that we cannot meet with, right? So the only thing we can do is to interact with them many times in social media, right? And sometimes even publicly. And sometimes even we don't agree with everybody, So we have to learn that there's an online etiquette, but also how to protect ourselves when we are online, and when we are, we don't always have to answer. That's it. That's the main point. Just be mindful of your energy.
I had a really interesting one just before Christmas. I did a property refurb, and I put it on a group, a Facebook group, which I'm quite active on. But there's about 37,000 people on the group, so it's quite a lot of noise. Anyway, I put some pictures on. And basically, I got crucified. Basically, it wasn't a very good job, right? And these messages came popping up after I posted it. And to be totally honest, I was a little bit hurt because I thought it wasn't the top standard, but it was a decent standard for people to rent and use. Now, I agonized over this for a day or two, because I didn't want to respond to the messages. I didn't want to be that irate person. What are you talking about? So I did nothing. And I waited and waited. I thought about it over Christmas and New Year. Now, yesterday was a bank holiday in the UK, but I started working yesterday. I sent a 7-minute message explaining why I did that, what I did, and the choices, the reasons why I made those choices. And you might not necessarily like my style in refurbishment, but it solved the purpose. I've got an increase in rent. I've got new tenants coming in later on this week. It's gone really well. And it was fascinating to see. It exploded again, and it was basically saying, your energy was fantastic. You took a negative and turned it into a positive. Because actually there were some really harsh words, but there was learning from me. I could learn from that experience and do things better. And I flipped it on its head and I said, look, I've taken on board. I'll do things slightly differently. Boom, 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 boom. As I say, a 7-minute video I recorded. Now, again, it blew up, just saying, fantastic, the energy you had, it's a positive mentality. It must have been hard what people did. And some people were saying, I know, some of the people who were harsh said, look, I know I was harsh with you, but it was meant to be as constructive feedback rather than criticism. But it just showed I didn't emotionally, we are emotional beings, but sometimes you can't respond emotionally. You have to take a step back, think about it, construct something that is meaningful that you can deliver. So for me, it was a really good exercise on, because in social media, you take the flack sometimes. If they don't agree with you, they will tell you on social media. So I think also people need to learn that and don't always respond in your first emotions to those sorts of situations, and try and find the positives. As you were saying, for 2022 for you, is find the positives in what people are saying. But what have you found in social media? Because I know you help people with social media, and you're active on social media as well. What's your experience of criticism, harshness to you? How do you deal with that?
Well, it's to be honest, I have to say that I already past that point in which I really don't mind if people criticize me openly. So I try to be first of all my interactions on social media, everything I do on social media is very informative. It's trying to be of value to people. And my opinion doesn't necessarily have to be in agreement with what they think and what they believe about what I do and what I show and what I post. Yeah. But I'm fine with it, So when someone is criticizing me, and actually I had a couple of people criticizing me at the end of last year, I said, well, I think I'm reaching a certain level in which people like to criticize me, which is good. But at the same time, it's always good to, I have learned not to ask for clarification online. You know what I mean? So also because some people I want to, as much as maybe they don't respect my dignity, but it's like probably when I post publicly, then I earn the right to be criticized, right? So, but if I don't like something from someone publicly, I try to take it privately and maybe discuss with that person. If that person said something that I didn't like, and then I try to take it privately. So we discuss this privately. But I really have a thick skin. And when people criticize me or they say something that I don't like, I'm fine with it. And I already came, literally into peace with myself. And also because it's not even me who posts anymore. It's members of my team. Okay. And sometimes, they make mistakes or they write things the way that I don't like to express them, because it's impossible for me to cope with everything that my company does. So I have to delegate, and I have to accept that there's going to be some level of discomfort for me. Yeah. So, but it's a balance between I want to keep on growing my business, but at the same time I want to keep on empowering my team. Yeah. But actually, I think it was the 1st or the 2nd of the 1st of January or the 2nd of January, maybe the 2nd of January. Yes, they posted the content from someone. We like to share content from other people. Sure. Because that's something of of the services that we offer. So we offer services. Hey, we're going to share your content. So we're going to use our influence to show your content. Yeah. And one of our clients is a great writer. Actually, she lives in the UK. Interestingly enough, it's an amazing writer, like very, 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 very successful, and she's such a good writer that she's written hundreds, if not thousands, of articles in her entire life. So we always, use her content, or from time to time use her content. And my team chose one of them. We have so many possibilities to choose upon. Yeah. That my team chose an article about addiction, sex addiction, and the picture was like a lady with her hands like tied and in her back. Right. So, when and they posted without asking me for permission, because typically they don't ask for permission for posting. They just post. And I'm sure that the article was really good, but I found it inappropriate. Inappropriate for my audience, and I wasn't comfortable with it because I didn't want to convey a message that would not match with who I am, right? Yeah. And I'm not saying that sex addiction is not a problem. And there's a lot of mental health professionals that are dealing with clients with this. But I didn't like the way that it was conveyed, because there was a picture of a woman, with the hands tied at her back. So I just didn't like the whole thing. But I just asked my team, would you mind? Thank you for posting, but would you mind? So, and again, I think that was. Did
you take the post down?
Yeah, I took it down. And when we posted 13 different outlets at the same time. So we had to go one by one. Some of them, they could do it. Some of others, I had to do it myself personally. And then the point I was trying to make is that sometimes it's not even the comment from someone else. Sometimes it can even be myself or my team posting something that, with all the best, intention, they posted, but unfortunately, I believe that it wasn't a good fit for our brand and for the messages we were trying to convey.
And what did you do, Angel, when you then shared that with your team that you wanted it taken down? I can't imagine this, but are you a shouter? Are you a table thumper? Like, how do you respond, or is it cool, calm, and collected? Look, that you made a mistake. Can you just take it all down from all of the different media? Like, how do you when you're engaging, when someone has done something wrong or something inappropriate or what you wouldn't post, how do you actually respond as an employer?
That's a great question. So actually, it was done through text. So we have we have a team. We have several groups to deal with different aspects of the business on Signal. If you're familiar with the app Signal. And then I basically said, hey, I just saw that you posted that. The graphic was great, the text was great, but I think it's inappropriate. So it was pretty collected. But I said, but something I have learned is that when me being like the leader of the company, regardless of the tone, when you say something in writing, people don't always interpret the same way. You know what I mean? So even if I measure my words very much, that doesn't mean they're going to interpret them, understand it the same way. Yeah. So then after saying whatever I have to say, then I am very precise. So please make sure that you go to all the social media outlets. Please make sure that we delete it from all those social media outlets. If you need help, please let me know. This is an urgent thing. And actually, let me tell you, it took to them 9 hours to respond. Oh, because they were on holiday. Yeah, it was Sunday. So, and I'm very respectful, They go to church, they have their families, they have to cook, they have to, and so that was okay, So I did as much damage control as I could, and they did the other part. At the end, I remember 9 hours later, one member of my team said, we've reviewed every single post. Those are the two only ones we couldn't delete. Please click here on the link, and then you will be able to delete them yourselves. But it's amazing that you asked me this question, because when you were asking the question, I was thinking, hey, remember, Mark, for 2022, my mantra is focus on the positive. Yeah. But I then immediately remember one of the hardest lessons I've ever learned in my working time, which is I was still living in Barcelona, and my assistant at that time, when I left the company, she said, Angel, I have to tell you something. Nobody has told you that in the team, but I have to tell you something. I was the manager of a small group of five people maybe. And she goes, she liked me a lot, and I loved my assistant. Unfortunately, a few years later, she died of cancer, unfortunately, but she was an amazing human being. And she told me, Angel, I have to tell you something. Sometimes the way you convey messages come across really aggressively.
Okay.
And that was in the 90s. I'm telling you, that was 1996, probably, 97. And I was shocked when she told me, because nobody had made that reality check for me, ever. And I will never forget when she told me, because when she told me, I dropped her at her place it was the last person I dropped. It was like 7 a.m. after one night of partying with all the colleagues and everything. It was very cold. And she told me, Angel, before I leave you, and I know you're going to go out, outside the country and everything, I have to tell you, because I want to tell you, because I want you to know that sometimes you are very aggressive the way you convey messages to your team.
I think that you were. Sorry, Angel, sorry to cut across. Do you think you were?
Absolutely. When she told me, yes, because she gave me details. Can you give me details, please? Yeah. And she told me and said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. You know, when you feel so embarrassed that, but she was the only one that dared to tell me.
But that's really interesting because, like, you seem like quite a self-aware person and a sort of quite like emotionally relatively sort of stable and sort of happy, and you seem a positive guy. At that time, were you less emotionally intelligent, do you think?
No, but I wouldn't say a youngster, but I was in my late 20s. It was my first manager's position. And I loved that job. I loved that group I had, my team. I loved the team, but that's why even if I was pretty self-aware or very aware of myself, there's always something that you always have blind spots.
Yeah.
That's why I always advise people, if they can have someone that coaches them in their life, if you can have a coach, a personal coach, a life coach, any sort of coach, it's so important because you will always have blind spots. Always.
But do you know what? I had my first job. So I graduated from university at 21. My first job was 21, 22 years old. And I still remember, so that's like sort of 5-6 years after your experience. I remember bosses shouting, thumping the table, throwing things at people. And we're now in 2021 and lots of PC has really dominated culture in the West as well. And that just isn't accepted these days, or it's accepted less than it was. In 2002, it was like, well, he's annoyed. He's annoyed with what you did. Throw a book at you or whatever, throw some papers at you. I think we have moved on from where the sort of dominant sort of leader or manager can do those types of things. I think we're in that position now. It's almost gone too far the other way, in the sense that people can't express sometimes how they're feeling about people's behavior or conduct. It's difficult to have those conversations with people and be honest with them. So I remember those early days where people, managers and bosses used to be.
Well, thank you. Thank God I don't remember any manager. I don't remember having any manager like this. But what this lady told me, my assistant told me, was sometimes you don't use the tone of your voice adequately, and you don't realize. And you are really close to yelling, but you don't realize. And so also what happens is that my mom is a teacher. So I was born inside a home with my mom as a teacher. And she was extremely scrupulous about the use of language.
Right.
So I really learned how to use language, very much. So the thing is, I realized that, let's say when I was mad or I didn't have time to convey something or whatever, I had to take like a shortcut. I wouldn't use so many nice words. So everybody was used to Angel being so polite, so commensurate, so using always the nice, kind words, that when I was not using them, then it was immediately like a big, massive gap. This is not our Angel. What happened to Angel, right? So no, she never told me I was disrespectful, but I was aggressive.
Right.
So I never crossed the boundaries of the being disrespectful, which obviously immediately when she told me this, I remember I asked her for clarification, but also I said, I'm so sorry. I wish I had known before. Yeah. Because I would have been more mindful about this. But to your point also, something that happens after what you said is, I think that we have gone from one extreme to the other. Obviously, I don't approve of any boss like, hitting tables, throwing objects, or yelling, or blah blah blah. Obviously, I don't like it, and I don't approve of it, and I wouldn't like to do that myself. But also at the same time, I think that today we have become too. How to say this with avoiding people taking this negatively. I think that we are too sensitive about so many things.
Dan Pena calls people, millennials mainly, and Gen Z, that they're snowflakes. That people have turned into people that can't take criticism, and I have this whole this whole theory about this, and my theory is that as children, and I can only talk about in the UK, I can't talk about anywhere else, but in the UK, there came a point when children were being educated that instead of when you had a sports race and you had the first and second and third prize, at some point, the kid who came eighth got a medal as well, and they got reassured they were fantastic as well. And I actually don't really agree with that in a way, because life can be competitive and you do need to understand that there are winners and losers. And I think that's where this generation of what Dan Pena calls snowflakes has come, because the people who come last get the same medal as the people who come first. And therefore, everyone expects whatever performance they have in their job, career, business, they expect to be given a medal. And to be honest, it doesn't work like that in life. You don't get that. You don't get an 8th place medal in business and in a corporate career, which kids are now expecting.
Obviously, children's education is something that fascinates me. And, having my, 3 kids, and I always have, in my mind, I always have this I'm always trying to keep this balance, right? Between what's the right education I should, what are the right things I should teach my kids, but at the same time, I want them to respect their mom and dad, right? And I want them to be respectful in their relationship with us. But at the same time, I want them to be strong-willed enough, so that they're able to keep their ground, right? Yeah. So one thing is help them or teach them, to be competitive, because that's what they're going to find. But also, I want them to be strong. Absolutely. And sometimes I have to concede, Have you ever thought, like, my kid just told me this? Had I said that to my father, oh my God.
Oh, yeah. I totally
Has that ever happened to me? That ever happened to you? That just happened to me this past week. We were obviously with the vacation, with the holidays, we were at home all the time. So we were interacting a lot. And I remember telling one of my kids, if I had ever said that to my father, I still remember what's the name of that? The sleepers, the sandal or whatever, the shoe that they would use to
the boot,
And again, I'm not saying that my father would abuse of me physically, but as you know, it was easy, Mom and dad would give you would hit you just, it was just something that the moms and dads used to do. Yeah,
we called it a clip around the ear. They basically they just say, don't do that, stop that, and
exactly.
You can't. I don't actually think you should hit your children. I actually start from the starting point. You shouldn't hit your children, but I agree in that some of the things. So I've got a 5 and 7-year-old. Sometimes my 7-year-old says things, and you're just like, my mum or my dad, if they heard you, you would be in big trouble. And it's difficult. It's difficult to show children that raise of sort of alarm level of you've overstepped the mark. You need to stop. I'll give you a quick example. We were playing a board game, and my eldest cheated. Now, it was only that I was paying attention to it, and I was actually like, hold on a second. Was that what you actually did? And she said yes. I said, no, I think you're wrong. Did you actually do what you said? And she said no. Now, I actually raised the decibels, because I was like, look, you don't cheat. In life, you can't cheat. and deceiving people in that way is just not acceptable behavior. But it's interesting, like, she thought she could get away with it. And to be honest, as a child, you think you can get away with some things, and sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But it was important for me personally to sort of show her that that's not acceptable behavior. So I think it's important. And I do think sometimes parents, and totally generalizing it, some parents don't ever raise the decibel level, not shouting. I didn't shout at her, but just raise the alarm level that actually you've overstepped the mark there. And I think it's really important as a parent that you show there are lines that you don't cross.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. No, I agree. But, it's always this balance, right? It's this balance because you want them to be part of a society. You want them to thrive. You want them to survive, right? Really? So there's many different things. And also, and that's a question I sometimes, I get asked from time to time and I think that my perspective of parenthood has changed in the last 2 years. Okay. Definitely. Because I think that my kids have to have other skills that maybe were not as necessary before. Right. Given the whole mess and chaos that the world is working on right now, I think that, for instance, discernment is a big word for me right now. Critical thinking is a big, So I'm much more permissive. I have to say, I'm much more permissive with my kids right now than 20 months ago. Definitely.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Or 22. It's already 20. Yeah, it's already 22 months ago that all this mess started worldwide, So because I really feel that I have to allow them to make more mistakes and more mistakes and more mistakes. And even if they go down a rabbit hole that they think they're going to fail, allow them to do it, and also, as you know, the external, their external world, our external world is more restrictive, right? It's more like there are more rules, there are more customs right now, correct? There's more things that you have to take into consideration. So I really value, even if it's against my way of thinking, or even if they are thinking something which is socially not accepted or awkward, I allow them to go down that path and experience. At the end of the day, I'm there for them, right? I mean, if they get in trouble in the school because they said something that wasn't appropriate, I'm really, honestly, I have never been involved with. I've always been involved with the school system, with the schools that my kids go to. Always. Right now, I'm all the way. I mean, I am part of there's an ambassadors and leadership program in the school district. I'm part of it. I'm doing so much for the school system, for the kids, because I really want to be involved. I really want to make sure that the important things are being given and the important lessons are being given to the kids.
How do you run successful businesses and do so much in your community and your philanthropic work with Wisdom for Kids? How do you manage to do so many different things?
I would say probably because my energy, this, what's the name of that famous bunny that has a battery that never stops?
Oh, a Duracell bunny. Yeah. Like
I always forget the name of the battery brand, but you know what I mean. I'm really that kind of, passionate, high energy guy. So I always, one of my main weaknesses is literally I'm not the best guy at operations. Right. But the thing is, thank God I have a team that helps me organize my work.
Right.
Thank God. But it's my passion. If I didn't have this energy, I wouldn't be able to do everything that I have to do. And
how do you keep your energy levels so high? Is it sleep? Is it diet? Is it exercise? Or is it all?
Great question. I exercise on and off. I actually, since my kids started their vacation, I stopped exercising completely because I wanted to be with them. And my wife works as well. I can work from home. So I made sure I stayed with them. So I work on and off. I exercise on and off. But a few changes I started to do last 22, 21 months, which is eating much better, but eating like in the sense of more nourishing food.
Right.
More nourishing food. And I realized that I was making so many mistakes. I realized that most of the food I was eating was literally dead food, literally dead food. And I started to challenge myself and my thoughts and my habits of what to eat. And let me give you an example. Since very early on in my life, I was told that dairy was bad. Just to give you an example.
Okay.
I started to drink raw milk for the first time in my life when all this craziness started.
Right.
Raw milk is one of the best foods that you can put into your body. But you are used, and I remember, probably you remember, I don't know if when you were a kid, your grandma used to go to some place and with this small container would go and buy the milk like in gallons or in liters or whatever. And then you would go home and then you would boil it. I don't know if you remember that, but anyway, I remember that from Spain, from my family.
Right.
So suddenly I realized, speaking with some experts, that you don't have to boil the milk because you actually kill most of the microbiome, the probiotics that are in the milk. Yeah. And there's so many more things. I had reduced the consumption of meat dramatically in my life because I thought that meat was really that bad. But what is really bad is not the milk or it's not the meat. It's where does that milk come from? Were those cows like pasture raised and finished? Yeah. Was that where does that meat come from? All these different things. So I had not realized, I had never thought that most of the food that we eat is not. Was really dead. And just from the food alone, if you move out of the pasteurized food and super hygienic, hygienically accepted food into more natural food, and you start going to the farms and if you can go to local farms and you can go to local farmers markets and these kind of things, immediately the amount of energy that you get is changes. And also sleep is extremely important too. And let me tell you, sometimes I have 13, 14 hours sleep days or nights. Literally, I do. I just tell my family, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I feel so tired. In winter is easier because, at 6, it's already night. It's dark night. So I go to sleep. I just make sure I put some, buds here on my ears. And then I use a mask or something so there's no light. And then I can do that. And then I sleep up until I don't want to sleep any longer. And also, I think I mentioned that last time you and I spoke. Every single day in the morning for 30 minutes, I meditate with a group of people. We've been for 4 years meditating daily for 30 minutes. Right. It's an intention experiment group more than an meditation. And we follow a very well-known lady called Lynn McTaggart. Lynn McTaggart has something called the intention experiment. So we meditate intending for someone every single morning. And I think that this also helps me a lot because that helps me clean my brain. And maybe the last thing I wanted to mention is that something I do very often also is I just put loud music. I take my convertible Mini Cooper and I drive wildly, literally wildly, as wild as you can imagine, with my super, speakers at the top volume, admissible by the local authorities, and I just drive, and that gives me that additional edge of craziness and weirdo-ness that I need in my life. You know what I mean? When you just want to do something weird, and I don't bother anybody, right? But I really love to do it.
It's funny because my daughter said to me earlier on today, she said something like, "Oh, Dad, you're weird."
Exactly.
And I said, "Yeah, I am."
Thank you.
And yeah, exactly. Thank you very much. I think we should embrace our weirdness. As entrepreneurs, as business owners, I think we are the weirdest of all of us because we take risks and make choices that most people would never even think about doing. So I celebrated it. I said, yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And she was taken aback. Just she thought she was sort of like having a bit of a go. I was like, no, thank you very much. Like, it's great. I really appreciate it.
It's a compliment. Yeah, it's a compliment.
You've mentioned a couple of times about your wife, and we don't have to go into a lot of detail, but how does the role of what's the role of your wife on your not on your business, but what's the support? What does she do? What's her role within the Ribo lifestyle?
Thank you. Yes, well, she has different roles, and the role has changed over time. She has worked on and off. She's now working again, and she's being really successful, very successful, like super duper successful. And so she was always the one, historically was always the one being at home. And she was the one like caring more about our health, our hygiene, she was always, she's a personal trainer.
Okay.
So she's very strong as far as like, physical body and physical movement and nutrition and all these kind of things. So she's always been a reference of someone with a lot of very strong, willpower that wakes up at 5:30 in the morning to go to the gym before going to work.
Right.
So, so that's something I don't think I will ever be able to wake up at 5:30 to go to the gym. But, you never say no, because maybe sometimes I do that, and you will be the first to know, Mark. But so so her role has been changing. But she was always been a very strong support. Obviously, she's always been, taking care of all the activities of the kids. Right now, since she's right now working, now we have like rebalance the different activities. I love cooking, for instance, and I like to also bake bread, and I like to prepare my own yogurt, and I like to prepare several broths for home. So we've been rebalancing but because my wife doesn't like at all to cook, and I love to cook, but she still cooks very well, even though she doesn't like it. But I love to cook, and I don't do it bad. So people, the family likes it. But I would say that she's always been besides this, the how strong her will is. I always say that she's much more lighthearted than me. I'm kind of like more strong, like maybe sometimes heavy, even though it doesn't look like this. But she's more like, she's the one that she can have an argument with you right now, and in 30 minutes she's forgotten. Okay. I have to say, I have a strong time. It's difficult for me to do that.
Okay.
I have to spend a few hours, maybe even go for a walk, and then go back and pretend that nothing happened before. But no, she's an expert on really. She can have an argument with me right now, and when I finish this conversation with you, I go out and she's the most, sweet, adorable, lovely lady in the world, which is awesome. I love it. No, I love it.
So we've talked about, got a few minutes left. We've talked about start of 2022. So where do you now see your business, your family, wherever you live? Where do you see yourself in sort of 2 to 5 years?
Mm-hmm. So, well, I think my game of influence has kept on growing and growing and growing. So I have more and more and more learned from the game of influence, how to give influence to people, how to earn influence from people. So that I see myself really playing in a whole new level my game of influence, in the sense that I want to use my influence to do good in the world.
Right.
More and more and more and more. So not only use it for my business, not only use my influence to help others have more influence because of me, but also to use it for larger missions. And you mentioned my Wisdom for Kids Foundation before. unfortunately, we had to stop in 2020. We had to stop everything that we were doing because we couldn't go to those communities.
Yeah.
Right. And I have to say, still today, and we are already in 2022, there's many communities which are isolated or which are in lockdown, or, it's like we have not been allowed to many of those communities still. So our volunteers, the local volunteers in those communities, have not been able to help those kids to make progress with their business plans, with entrepreneurial activities.
Yeah.
And also, we wanted to keep on growing. So I think that 2022 is going to be a year, and moving forward, that also we're going to reset the goals for our foundation and to make sure, how everything that has happened so far, how do we adapt? And how do we make sure that we are going to keep on growing the outreach of our foundation, the number of kids that we're going to be able to help with, considering the actual circumstances, considering that there's going to be restrictions.
So do you ever see yourself taking a full-time step out of CEO Confident? Do you see a place where you don't work anymore and you're just doing this philanthropic stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would if you ask me what my ideal world would be, absolutely. I don't have to work any longer. The only thing I do is just make sure they go community after community after community after community, using my full power, my full presence, a larger and larger team to make this change in Latin America with all those kids faster.
Right.
Systematically to be there. I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't probably on a tent. I wouldn't be living on a tent, but on an RV or something like this, like going city after city, community after community, doing that. And obviously having all my logistics team around me, doing all the pre-work that needs to be done before we get into a community. Absolutely. I would be delighted to do that. I would be delighted to do that. But again, we have to be able to get into those communities, because right now, as you can imagine, it's the same, I don't know if England is the same as Wales or is the same as Scotland right now. I don't know if the restrictions are the same, if the laws are the same.
They're slightly different. They are slightly different. Yeah.
Okay. So then, as you know, this is not just inside the Great Britain, right? But as you know, if you go to Ireland, it's different. And if you go to France, it's different. And if you go to Switzerland, it's different. Yeah. So in Latin America, it's the exact same thing.
Right.
There's no two countries that have the same level of restrictions. There's no two countries. So there's countries where you can do a few things and others that you cannot do anything. And also, there's communities that are really isolated that are even more isolated than before. And there's communities that, are a little bit more open. So again, it's not as before that you could go anywhere and you can knock on anybody's door. And most of the people would say, wow, please come. We would love that, that you did that to our kids and you could help our kids with all those entrepreneurial journey activities that you guys do in the Wisdom for Kids Foundation.
So you can see yourself taking a complete step out of your business and doing that stuff full time?
Yeah, I don't see that happening in 2022.
No, okay. But your kids
I would love to do it.
Quite young still, so they are.
Oh yeah, no. I definitely. I when someone asks me, when do you see the age in which you will be retiring? When someone asks me this question, which doesn't happen often because nobody sees me near retirement at all, but they always tell, I'm going to be like one of those old, like strange communities in some places in Italy. These people that only eat olives and they drink wine every day, and they are 120 years old, and they still have their, make their jokes, and they still go for a walk every day in their village. These small villages in Italy that nobody knows how it works, but I see myself being 125 years old, literally, honestly, and teaching things to kids and teaching things to people and going around and traveling around. Absolutely.
So when do you retire? You said you're not asked very often. When do you see that time of taking the step back and being able to do some of those things?
That's a great question. I don't know. Maybe in 5 years.
Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting because there's a guy that I met on a networking, and he started his own business and he started his own business because he wanted to take the foot off the accelerator. And it's almost a complete confusion for me, because I started my businesses to achieve more and to be able to have more financial security. Well, not financial security, but potential of financial earning to increase. And his ambition was to have this great business that he had a couple of clients, and his ambition was to take the step up the accelerator. So as an entrepreneur, you can be any type of entrepreneur. You can be a full-on hustle. You can be a lifestyle entrepreneur. You can be a business owner where you don't run the business. Someone else systemized it, or they can run it. There are so many different varieties of the entrepreneur that I think whatever type, if you are that character that wants to be an entrepreneur, then there's so many different varieties that you can actually be.
Yeah, and I think that they will become more of a gradual,
right?
Like retiree.
Yeah.
So I don't see myself stopping. What I see is that, and something I've been thinking a lot about, is probably like not to be so distant from the territory where I want to eventually make a big impact, which is Latin America.
Yeah.
What I have thought a lot is, how can I adapt my business so I can start spending months every year on every single country.
Right.
So working throughout the year, let's say the first quarter, I'm going to live in that country.
Yeah.
I will still do my work, but at the same time, I will be already in that country, already making an impact. Maybe it's not the same impact I could do before because I will be limited due to the restrictions, but I will already be there. Because there's something very important for us in the Wisdom for Kids Foundation, which is staying in contact with the community, because you really get the feeling of what's going on. Yeah. Regardless of what the people tell you, unless you go there, you don't really understand it. And we really lived that in the beginning. It doesn't matter how many documentaries you watch about indigenous communities in Latin America, until you go there and you actually start talking to the locals and to the community leaders and to the children, and you start teaching them something, you don't really know, what's going on there and how you can best serve them. So that's why I think I'm going to have a gradual, like instead of having a permanent presence here in the US, probably like I will start going remotely to those areas more often, so that it will be a gradual retirement. Make sense?
It does. Look, Angel, we've come to the end of our hour, so I just want to say thank you so much for joining me on this like informal chat. It's been really nice hearing a lot more about you and about what you do and why you do that as well. So happy New Year to you. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll speak to you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you very much to you, obviously. It's been a great conversation. I always I love chatting with you, so thank you. And obviously, thank you for everybody that has been listening to us today.
Pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Happy